the the energy on the planet that's coming in right now and has been for the last couple decades is pulling us all up energetically. So, and the only way we can move to this higher consciousness is we have to let go of the heavy energies within us. This is what we so the new energy is basically just like kind of, poking at this like boom, 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 just lighting this up because if I don't let this go, I can't raise to a higher vibration. And that's why we're seeing an escalation of these types of events. So we're seeing an escalation of violence um, because of the resist when people are resisting. Like I said, in the big picture, we're fine. We're going in things are moving in a certain direction and we're going to get there. We're going to move to higher consciousness. But I would certainly like to see it be a lot less challenging of a transition. There's no need for it to be this rowdy, rough, violent transition into peace. Right? I mean, just when I say it, it sounds ridiculous, right? Why would we have a rowdy, rough, violent transition into peace? Right?
Hey, everybody. Our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you've ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much.
We love.
Welcome, everybody, to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are so happy to have our good friend Jeffrey Allen back with us today. We have had Jeffrey on before, and our community loved the interview, and they also have loved the course that you have, Spirit Mind, and we've just heard so many rave reviews about Jeffrey, and we wanted to have you back on with our community here. So thank you for agreeing to come back.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and it's always fun to be with a live interactive audience where you guys can ask questions and so on. That'll be really fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. I would love to just start by, I know last time you had tuned into our energy, and it was really cool to just hear, because you are like the most amazing energy healer that we've ever come across. Can you tune into our group's energy and see if there's anything coming through right now?
Yeah, sure. Here, I'll switch back to gallery so I can see you guys too.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was noticing when just as you guys were all kind of popping in on the cameras, I can see there's like a lot of enthusiasm. So your group has like a really open heart. I guess no surprise, right? That's the work you're doing. But looking at the energy, it looks like hearts are wide open. And then also there's a really nice energy extending from present time, from your group out into the future. So this energy is kind of how would I say it? Kind of like laying the groundwork or illuminating a path forward that we can take that is a little more graceful than the one we're on right now. So, and that's great. That's one of the most powerful things we can do energy-wise and also just with ourselves. We're vibrating from that space of love. It's radiating out into the world around us, both the people that are close to us, people we work with, but also in general out into the world. And as we do that, that's the most powerful way that we can change the world in a global sense, right? Because right now there's a lot of people that are more turned inward. There's a lot of kind of fear or anxiety about the future, and people are kind of turning their energy inward and to protect themselves. When we have anxiety about the future, there's kind of two positions we can take. We can either say, I'm afraid, I want to kind of contract and protect myself, protect my family, my group, or even my country. That's kind of the move that people have energetically toward that position. And unfortunately, that's kind of a short-term stance. It doesn't help us much in the long term. It sort of reacts to the short-term threat that we perceive, whether real or not. What I see in this group is this group's mostly taking the other approach, which is I'm going to center myself in the space of love. And from that space of love, I'm going to kind of hold space for or envision the beautiful future that I want to live in, that I want I want my kids to live in and my grandkids to live in, and that I want for everybody in the world. And uh, and that's the energy I see when I tune into this group. So the heart space, and then that radiating outward, this vote for a potential, like, hey, I want to see a happy future for everybody. Let's go for peace. Let's go for love. And it's working. Because like I said, I can see it radiating out from all of you.
Great. Good job, team.
Knowing that there is sometimes now a very divisive or separating energy or even actions between people, what is the best way that we can approach people who disagree to change that energy so we can really know the truth, which for most people is that we want what's good?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you asked that, because I was just talking about this in a different interview earlier. And my wife, he saw me was talking about it in our last live call with students. And she always draws these cool little energy diagrams. So I'll try to like show you with my hands because I don't have the diagrams. But I found it super insightful. So just looking at the energy, and what she said is, if you've got kind of two sides, and in this dualistic world, kind of material world, it's natural that things have two sides. That's just the nature of, this physical existence. So if you have a group that's like kind of has one position and a group that has a different position, if they're arguing, that creates this sort of loop back and forth where this group is sort of pushing energy toward the other group, and this one's pushing energy back, and it creates this sort of cycle of conflict energetically that's moving. And the temptation for most of us is to say, okay, which group is right, or which group do I like or belong to, or which feels comfortable to me? And then we tend to move our awareness into, one of those groups. But that's has some problems, right? So the problem is when we move our energy into one of these groups, then that energy, that conflict energy that's circulating between the groups begins circulating within us. And so it doesn't matter if what the group is. It's not like, oh, one group is violent and the other one's not, or one group is argumentative and the other one's not. It's the circulation of conflict energy going through everybody in those groups. And so what Isami said, this was what I found really fascinating. She said, what you can do when you remember this is kind of take a step back and say, oh, right, I want to be in the center. And so you're going to bring your awareness back to the center. I'm sure this is something you guys are familiar with, the work you're doing. So you bring your awareness to the center, and then you can see both groups from love. So you're in the middle, you're in your space. You might still say, oh, I kind of prefer this, or I prefer that, but you're centered in love. You're not within that conflict energy anymore. So you can see it circulating, but you can see it circulating from a perspective of love. So and the reason to know internally if this is happening, like if you start feeling really frustrated, like, I can't believe there's so many people, I'm feeling, that this is really important over here. I can't believe that other people aren't feeling that, and I'm frustrated or worried about the future, or whatever the feeling is. When you start feeling that, that's when you can say to yourself, oh, I've moved inside that group energy where this conflict is circulating. And so I want to just come back to myself. I can still prefer, like, oh, I prefer that viewpoint, or I feel more comfortable with that viewpoint or this viewpoint. But I still say centered in myself in the space of love. And that's when we're able to see, kind of, we've taken a step back, we're able to see, like, oh, there's energy circulating, but I can actually see everybody from a perspective of love. Even the people that might be on the like other team, right? Or having a viewpoint that I don't agree with, suddenly I can see them all from love. They're just people. They're not conflict. And it's so powerful. And, of course, in the US, just going through the election cycle, and other places with their election cycles too, you see this a lot. Everybody, is kind of put in this position of like, are you A or B? And so the answer is like, no, I'm me. I'm not I'm not A, I'm not B. I'm myself. and I'm choosing to be centered in love, and I feel more aligned with A, or I feel more aligned with B, but those are just conceptual energies. I'm actually just a person here. So yeah, so that's kind of that's the way somebody was describing the energy, and it's I love that. Really, really resonated with me.
I love that too. And it made me think, just about like my life and my observation of these two energies. And it seems that it's grown more intense in my lifetime, where
Mhm.
these two sides have gotten like, it's like I'm A and I'm B, where I don't
Yeah.
remember it being so intense. And so it was making me think, like, is because the polarization becoming so strong that it's gonna ultimately be better for allow people to see that more obviously and then have them come to the middle.
Yeah, I think so. I've been watching it for a long time too, that there's kind of two things that are making it feel like there's exaggeration of positions, like there's more gap in the middle between, different positions. Uh, One is that the energy on the planet that's coming in right now and has been for the last couple decades is pulling us all up energetically. So, and the only way we can move to this higher consciousness is we have to let go of the heavy energies within us. This is what we teach in the spirit mind work. It's kind of the first chapter, And so the new energy is really pushing on all the, if I've got a little heavy energy in here, a little bit of old pain, or see if I got a little object, we'll just use this. Like I got a little bit of pain or something in here, right? So the new energy is basically just like kind of, poking at this like boom, 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 just lighting this up. Because if I don't let this go, I can't raise to a higher vibration. And so the intensity is really up right now. If this made me feel sad before, it's going to make me feel doubly sad. Or if it was something that made me angry, I'm going to feel doubly angry. It's like the emotions are really exaggerated right now. And that's just because I need to see this so I can say, oh, all right, I'm going to find a perspective of love, and I'm going to like do that until I can see the situation with love, and I can let this release. And when I do that, my vibration comes up. I'm able to move up to a higher consciousness. So that's one thing that's really causing not conflict so much, but heightened intensity, like you mentioned. So things are more intense. People are more intense with uh, their perception of outsiders, the outside group, than they seemed to be before. So that's why the intensity is up. But the other thing I see, sorry, I've got really long answers always. So
Great.
I love your
yeah,
little.
Yeah.
once I catch the energy, it just keeps going. It's like I can't stop talking. He's the same way. So the other thing that's happening is if you look before it, kind of people were a little more evenly distributed across the spectrum of kind of beliefs. And so you had say it was like I can only show 8 fingers here, but I guess I could do 10. But if we've got 10 people here and they're kind of evenly distributed, there doesn't seem to be a lot of gaps, right? So there's just a little bit of space between each person, and sure, between these outliers, there's a big gap. But what's been happening with as the consciousness rises is more and more people are moving to one side. So you're seeing like this side over here, like this person is moving over and this person is moving over. So we're getting more and more people collecting toward one end. But it's sort of happening like that. It's like this person moves, then the next person, the next person, next person. So you can see what's happening is now there's a huge gap, not because anything changed, but because the people that haven't moved to the new energy, everybody's going this way, whether they want to or not. That's just where the planet's pushing us all. Uh, but the people that haven't moved, suddenly there's a big gap between them and the people over here. And then it looks a little threatening too. It looks like, why are there so many people so far away? Like they look like extremists, and people over here like, look at those extremists over there, And it's just that there's this larger gap energetically. There's not a lot of people kind of in this middle ground anymore. Everybody's kind of shuffling to one end. So this is just kind of energetically the nature of planetary consciousness change. So as the consciousness on the planet shifts and everybody steps up, we don't all do it at the same time. We don't like, okay, it's Thursday, boom, everybody up, woohoo! We all move up to higher consciousness. It just happens as we're ready and as we're able to release these heavy energies within ourselves. And so, eventually it gets where there's just a few people kind of in the old energy and most people are in the new energy. And it's there's a big gap and it's really uncomfortable. We're not quite to that yet. We're still kind of like, more like probably 60% in the new energy and maybe 40% in the old energy.
Mm.
But you can see it already. The gap's getting like, it's getting more obvious. There's a gap. There's a gap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear you talk about what happens. You had your little symbol of pain and then other things come in. I'd love to hear you talk about energetically what happens when we've got trauma and then more trauma, because it seems to be like it compounds. So, what happens to us energetically?
What happens energetically? Okay, so let's tune into the energy of your question. Do you have a specific example? It looks like there's something you
Well,
asked in a
I
general way,
guess,
but
yeah, I'm thinking in this political stuff that it seems to be that in order to be so upset about, let's say, the election,
uh
there's a lot of stuff underneath that. And it seems like with each trauma, it's exponential and not just like a 1 + 1 + 1 when you
yeah,
add
yeah, it's what you mean. Yeah, it's I don't think that trauma's escalating actually. Like when I look energetically, uh, even though we have war and conflict on a grand scale for our times happening right now, there's I don't see internally that the amount of pain people are carrying is going up. Yeah, what I see is that it's releasing, and it's releasing in a messy, uh, messy way. And so the pain that people have been carrying inside, as the vibration goes up and up and up, like I said, if I've got this pain in here, and anger, and it doesn't really matter where it came from. Could be from like generational, it could be from my culture, it could be something I learned, or it could be something I thought of, it doesn't really matter. If it's circulating, if it's in my energy field, uh, it's affecting me. And so as the planet is raising consciousness wise and energy wise, this stuff's just getting more and more animated on its way out. But it is on its way out. I don't see more trauma going in and sort of compounding energetically. But I understand your perspective. It kind of looks like that if you watch the news, or if you kind of if you just look on a very material world perspective or non-energy perspective, it does seem to be escalating.
Mm.
But on an energy perspective, things are actually dissipating.
Well, that's hopeful. I think I actually mean more specifically, not even on a group level, but on an individual level, what can happen to us when there's multiple things.
Mhm.
But I'm so happy to hear
Yeah.
your outlook that it's dissipating, because I do believe that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it makes me
Yeah.
just think that if anyone's listening and maybe that energy's been loud, you might be close to the finish line. You're going through a process where you might be close to really releasing all that. And one thing I'm curious if you've heard of or observed, because I've observed this and it's like a wild phenomenon. I've had like 10 friends over the last year reach out to me where all of a sudden they have had physical ailments that they've never had before, heart problems, neck pains, just these weird, and they're like intense. And is it due to this same thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what you're talking about there is uh has to do with how much we're resisting the change. Yeah. So, and again, I'm borrowing a lot from my wife Isami's teaching here. I love the way she organizes it. And
Mhm.
so the so if you look at just in a general sense, when there's a change in energy, right? So like this new energy is rising, pulling us up to a higher vibration. Like how you relate to that pull determines like how easy your journey is. So if you can just if you're resisting that flow, like, I don't want to let this go, I don't want to let it go, or I don't want to look at it, or whatever. If I'm resisting, things are going to get kind of bumpy and rough, right? Uh, because this has to release. So it's kind of like the universe is turning up the spotlight on this so you can see it. And you're like, I don't want to see it. Okay, want some more light then? Let's crank it up. Oh, I really don't want to see it. Oh, more light? You want more light? Right. So I'm joking, but that's kind of what it's like. So if you're resisting, it's going to get rough. If you start fighting, like you're just like dogmatically positioned, like I am not going to change. I'm not going to move. Um, okay, now you're in a tug of war with the universe. So like, who's going to win? Not you, right? You're not going to win a tug of war with the universe. And then, so that's when things start to get kind of dangerous. So if we're fighting for whatever reason, fighting against the flow of the new energy, that can push us into what in the spirit mind training we call it the X zone or mini X zone, and that's when basically things just start malfunctioning for us. So it can look like you mentioned, it can be health problems in the body. It can be extreme outbursts, either like a violent attitude or action toward others or toward ourselves. And that's why we're seeing an escalation of these types of events. So we're seeing an escalation of violence um, because of the resist when people are resisting. Like I said, in the big picture, we're fine. We're going in things are moving in a certain direction, and we're going to get there. We're going to move to higher consciousness. But I would certainly like to see it be a lot less challenging of a transition. There's no need for it to be this rowdy, rough, violent transition into peace. Right? I mean, just when I say it, it sounds ridiculous, right? Why would we have a rowdy, rough, violent transition into peace? Right? It seems like it might be easier to say, hey, oh, that sounds good. I'm just going to do whatever I can to let that go. Keep centering myself in love, doing whatever heart work I'm doing, and then and and stop resisting. Like I'm gonna start doing my best to just be in the present moment and to flow and to just trust that the universe is taking us to a beautiful place. And that actually probably is the energy that I saw with this whole group at the beginning too, is that trust. There seems to be a trust that the universe is pulling us in a beautiful direction, that that's an option, rather than a fear that everything is collapsing. Yeah, or at least the trust is a little bigger than the fear, right? So it's possible to hold both those. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What would you say for people that are experiencing that part of their life where they're about to let go, but it's feeling pretty chaotic? What would you advise that people do to relax into that trust more?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the most important thing is just being in the present moment. So being able to continue to bring your energy into the heart, into the center, into the present moment, because that's the only place where you're going to find that deep connection with spirit, where you're gonna experientially feel like, all right, things are okay, right? Because when things are getting really intense, our awareness, our kind of mind has moved outside that space of what we call the spirit mind. So it's moved kind of out here at one of the extremes. And from this position, uh, it's it's scary, it's lonely, it's seems kind of hopeless. Like when you're outside the space of your spirit, when you're kind of out here, or I'll use our term, we call it spirit mind and material mind. So if your material mind is out here, outside the space of spirit mind, it really can't function that well at its best. It's going to be because it's not in the space of love, right? So somehow you have to bring yourself back to that space of love, any centering technique that you have, and then the intensity will come down. Like you'll notice there's kind of this switch where actually I kind of experienced it a little bit this morning. So I woke up maybe 5:30 or something. I woke up a little early and there was some kind of like conflict energy circulating like from some dream. I don't even remember the details, but I could feel this kind of like this kind of intensity, right? And so when that happens for me, I have this practice in the morning where I I actually have my alarm set for 8 o'clock, not so that I'll wake up, but so that I'll stay in bed until 8. Right, I have a reverse alarm, right? Mine is like, don't get up until you hear the alarm, because I'll always be awake way before that. So, but I need more sleep than I'm getting. So I'll just center myself, and I'll just be in that space of spirit mind, be centered in the heart, and and I can feel that conflict at first, still like conflict, but I'm just kind of breathing and observing it. And then all of a sudden it's like everything sort of switches, whoop, or maybe it like turns up this way. But there's a switch where all of a sudden, whoa, I'm in this really intensely beautiful space. And like I can just feel love, like everything is love. And then that conflict is still there, but I'm not circulating it through my body and my mind anymore. It's still kind of working its way out because the body has chemicals and stuff. It takes about 20 minutes for stuff to clear. But my consciousness is not centered in that. My consciousness is centered in this very peaceful space. And it's super powerful, super amazing. And it's kind of funny. Years ago I put a sleep tracker under my mattress just for fun. I like these little tech stuff. And I put one for my wife. You saw me too. And then I started checking it because I was having these unique, maybe the last 2 weeks I've been having this experience of like this intense, amazing, wonderful feeling at the same time as some conflict is releasing, and or some anger or fear or whatever it is. I say conflict is kind of a general term, right? And so I checked the app just out of curiosity, and it says, oh, all those times it says I'm in REM. It says I'm in REM sleep. Like, interesting. And the body doesn't like it's even though I'm there and I'm conscious, like it would take I'd have to switch a little bit to be able to move or to talk or something. So it's like the body's almost like frozen. So the body is asleep, but I'm in there. And so just one example, but in your waking state, you can do this too. So if you're finding yourself in this intensity, what you're looking for is just keep centering yourself. For you all, it'd be use your heart centering techniques and just come back into that space and just trust that that's going to work, but it's not going to work like, snapping your fingers, right? So you're going to be in that space. Then all of a sudden, might take 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. All of a sudden you'll be like, whoa, okay. I'm back. I'm back in the present moment. I'm aware that this heavy energy is circulating, but I'm not identifying with it anymore. And that's when you know, okay, I've moved into that space of spirit mind. So you just have to keep using the tools and trust and have a little patience. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love that whole exercise and where we just got to. So thank you. That was really cool. I'm going to take it somewhere completely different if you're cool with it. So, yeah. There's a bunch of people listening that may have never met Jeffrey Allen. So I would love for them to understand your story and just hear about you as an energy healer and how you developed this amazing gift.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of general Jeffrey backstory. Yeah.
So
I'll try to do a quick one. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want anyone to miss out on it,
I'll hear you.
Yeah. So my background originally is mathematics and science. So I was I've got 2 computer science degrees and a mathematics degree, and that's kind of where I started out. But even in college, I was having these openings where I would see somebody's aura, or I would have a shared dream experience, or there's things happening that didn't really match with what I was taught was possible. I was having it wasn't sci-fi; it was more like some sort of strange psychic experiences, and I think everybody has those. So I think everybody has times where something happens that you can't quite explain why it happened. And you feel like if I told somebody, they probably won't believe me anyway. Right. So when you have those, like my personality, I always leaned into that. I thought, oh, this is fascinating. I must be wrong. Like the things I believe must be wrong because I'm getting different information. And so that's what's helped me over the years, like just change, because I'm always excited about discovering that I'm wrong. Like, oh, look at that. I guess I didn't understand how that worked because life isn't like that. I can see the evidence around me. But it turns out that's a little unusual. Most people, when an experience doesn't jive with their belief system, they just change the experience. They just make a new story about what happened. They just rewrite the facts, right? And that's more common, unfortunately. I don't know why, but we love to be right, or pretend that we're right. Uh, so, which is again, it's not a very long-term solution. It's a very brittle position to be like that. Like we're gonna end up getting breaking if we stay in that position. Anyway, so fast forward a bit. Yeah, so for me, about 15 years into that career, I decided to take my hobby of energy work and energy reading and energy healing, and I decided it's time to make that my full-time career. And so that's sort of, through a set of coincidences that kind of transitioned. And then for another, at least 10 years, I was traveling and teaching, doing healings and readings, traveled all around the world. That's what brought me into Japan, where I met my wife Usami, and now we've been married 15 years, and she's sort of taking me up to a, a new level of consciousness that I didn't even know was possible before. And it's such an amazing journey, especially because probably the thing that people are surprised most is that Hisami and I still, after 15 years, don't speak a common language. And so
Is that
we,
still true?
yeah, it's still true, unfortunately. Yeah, it's
Oh,
so
knew
yeah,
that was
when we met, I could say konnichiwa, Jeffrey Allen, I am Jeffrey, and she could say I am Isami, and that was it. Which to be honest was like the best first date ever, right? If you take out the words. Right? But over the years, we've sort of moved to the center. We both know a little bit, and so we speak sort of this mixed up Jinglish, kind of mixture.
okay. So you are
Um,
speaking some language to each other.
so we have communication, uh, but if I just speak English, she doesn't understand. If she just speaks Japanese, I don't understand.
Wow.
So it's a different way that we communicate. We communicate energetically and through love, and we do our best with the words, but it's both a challenge and a relief in
Mm.
some way. Yeah.
It's great.
Wow. I think that you would probably have a lot to reveal to people in relationships about communication because our words often do lead us astray. So
Yeah.
tell me more about what you guys do together and what you think people could bring from that experience to their own relationships where they do talk, but maybe they should stop much.
Yeah. Well, I would say probably the biggest thing I've noticed is that regardless of language, I'm not necessarily the best listener.
Hmm.
So if I'm tuning into a client or doing a session, uh, then yeah, I'm listening to the energy, I'm listening to the person. So that's really easier. If I'm teaching a class or something, I'm listening to everybody. But in my personal life, I'm so interested in everything that's happening. A lot of times I'm just sort of in my little bubble and I'm not really listening that carefully to people around me. I just started noticing this in the last year or so as we kind of move up consciousness wise, the energy moves up, we're able to see ourselves with more and more love. And so for me, that means I can see the spots that I probably didn't want to look at before, things that I was either embarrassed or judgmental about. Now I just see them. I'm like, oh, wow, interesting. I'm not really a very good listener. Even if we were fluent in the same language, if I'm not listening, that's not going to matter anyway. Right. So our communication challenges aren't really language based. They're just that I'm not really listening very deeply. Like I'm hearing what I think she said, or I'm taking what Hisami's what fits into what I believe already, rather than really opening and listening. And so that's a takeaway I think that everybody could apply. So in your relationships, most of the conflict or sort of struggle that arises in relationships, whether it's personal or work or family, comes from misunderstanding the person. So it's one thing to not understand somebody. That actually doesn't create any conflict. If you don't understand somebody, it's like, sorry, honey, I don't know what you said. Can you say it again? Or what does that word mean? Or I look it up or something, right? There's no conflict that comes from not understanding.
Mm.
The conflict comes from thinking you understood what the other person said, but you don't.
Mm.
Right. And so then you reflect that back to them and they're like, why are you responding this way to me? Because that's not the energy I brought to you. I brought this energy of love to you, and you came back with the energy of defensiveness. So that doesn't feel right here, right? Perhaps with Isamina, because of the language, sort of the language challenges we have, it's easier to see that energetic playing out. But I also see it in my friends, my family, people that are speaking the same language as me, other couples. This seems to be the biggest overlooked thing that I see is like, are you actually listening to what that person's saying? Even at work, I see this all the time. Somebody will make a comment like, "Oh, on some little detail on the video, we want to do this particular thing," and I might respond, and then later I realize, wait a minute, I think I misunderstood them, and so then my response doesn't make any sense, and that's probably confusing and then like, of course, I go back and say, "Hey, wait a minute, let me like tell me a little more. Did I misunderstand you? Were you, I thought you were saying like this, but now I have a feeling you weren't saying that at all." And be like, oh yeah, I wasn't actually saying that. And so that kind of communication is what takes that conflict and it just kind of disappears. Because suddenly the other person can see like, oh, now I understand why Jeffrey responded with this like this energy, because he thought I was starting with this energy. Oh, okay. Now I'm not confused anymore. Like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, but we both know that I didn't mean that. So now we're over here. So that's energetically, that's sort of the simplest tool that comes to mind.
And so would that be the best way to combat misunderstanding is questioning? Is there anything else you recommend, or is that like the number one way? Just continue to ask questions.
Yeah, well, I would say the main thing is being open to the idea that you're misunderstanding people.
No, not
Speaking
possible.
from my personal experience, like that's the number one thing is to cultivate self-love to the degree that it's okay if you're not perfect. It's okay if you're uh, sometimes being a jerk. That you can still see yourself from love rather than getting compounding it. Like, oh, I misunderstood, and then now I'm judgmental about myself for doing it, and so I'm going to cause another layer and another layer and another layer. You really just the trick is to always stay centered in love, especially with ourselves. We're really hard on ourselves more. I'd say more so than other people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm. Um, I actually was very interested when you were talking about the sleep stuff. I really wanted to ask you about specifically tools that people can use, energy tools to
Mhm.
work with their sleep, healing during their sleep,
Mhm.
or with dreams.
Sure. Yeah. A couple things come to mind. This is when I teach in my duality class at Mind Valley that like, I learned this from probably from Jim Self. It's hard to say. I've got so many great teachers, but if you're waking up in the night, one thing that you can do, an easy tool is just open all your chakras wide open. It might seem like the opposite thing that you'd want to do because you're trying to get back to sleep, but I found it to be incredibly useful because oftentimes, like when we sleep, what's happening naturally is our chakras just sort of one by one are sort of slowing down. You can imagine that they're sort of like slowing down, is sort of closing, going to sleep. It's not literal, but that's kind of what it feels like. So all the chakras are sort of like just kind of like shutting down and going into a sleep state. But if we've got what I do with my little energy here? Yeah, if we've got something stuck in one of our chakras, like if I've got this stuck in my throat, or a lot of times it'll be down the solar plexus, then as the chakra kind of wants to close down, it's kind of like having this thing stuck in the door. It like can't close.
Hmm.
And so we're going to wake up,
Mm.
right? And so when you wake up, what you can just say is, I'm just going to open all my chakras wide open, whoop, you know, and it's kind of like that shoe that was stuck in the door kind of falls out.
Oh.
And so that's a really simple tool that I recommend people try because for me, most times when I've used it, and students have reported the same thing, that I open all the chakras and that's the last thing I remember because boom, I'm right to sleep. This stuff
Oh,
comes out and then they just naturally close and go back to sleep. So that's a really simple one. The second one I would say is similar to the one that I just talked about, that put it in a little different words. So when we dream, uh, there's different things that are happening. So sometimes we're out in the astral plane interacting with people and doing things that we don't really remember when we come back. So that happens. Um, but the part that probably gets our attention the most is actually just what's called day residue. So our our brain literally physically is changing. So there's more space where so the fluid can flow through and kind of wash out the connections. We're sort of garbage collecting at night when we sleep. And so if there's something that comes up, if you wake up in the middle of the night and there's like this thing that you think needs your attention, what I like to the way I like to look at that is to say, all right, my brain is clearing. It got to a little thing and it doesn't know if it's okay to clear that or not. So I need to get my energy again here. So, right. So I get, so my brain, it's clearing and it hits some little thing that I'm like really holding on to tightly, and so it's like, this kind of wakes me up and says, it's like the dialogue pops up. Is it okay to delete this? Right. And but most, if you don't really understand what's happening, you wake up and then you sort of start circulating whatever this energy is through you and trying to solve the problem or thinking about the person that did that and what's wrong with them. And like you sort of unpack the emotions and start circulating them through your body, which is obviously not going to help you get back to sleep. Right. So you're going to be up for a long time. So instead, what you do is you wake up, there's something there, and you just go, simple question, am I ready to let this go or not? Right away, your answer is going to be, yeah, I'm ready.
Mm.
Right. And then go back to sleep. So you're just, you're physiologically, your body is asking you, is it okay? We need to bring you to consciousness because you're resisting this little piece. So that one I find extremely useful. If you're the kind of person that wakes up and then is kind of stuck on something and ruminating and can't get back to sleep, that one's fantastic. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love that.
You said that your consciousness over the last year has went up a little. I'm curious if there's any other big things that you've learned as you have ascended in consciousness.
Oh, well, big question. Yeah, there's every day I'm learning stuff that's new. I would say maybe tune into your group here, and I can pick something that kind of fits your group. Yeah. So the thing that I see in the group, and this is what I've been experiencing too, is there's a change in the heart space. There's like a sense of, I want to say like I'll just put it into words. I don't know where it's going, but there's like this kind of flutter that's happening on top of the heart space energetically. And what it feels kind of like light. It feels kind of like feathery. And there's a real vulnerability in there, of like a vulnerability of like maybe it's okay to just boom, just be totally open. Like even in a world that seems like it's scary and dangerous, maybe that's a misunderstanding. Uh, maybe if I just boom, just completely open, I'll experience things in a different way. Yeah, I don't know if that made sense, because sometimes when you talk about energy, the words don't quite line up.
No,
But that's the feeling. Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. And I just have a quick follow-up. Are
Mhm.
people changing physically? Like, are we actually evolving based off of these new energies to have different traits or characteristics as humans? Is that something you've come across, or are we?
Um, Probably, but maybe not in a time frame
Yeah,
that we're
overnight,
going to notice so much. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sorry if you're hearing a little banging in the background. They're building a house a few feet away from me.
Sorry.
I don't think
We got
Welcome to Tokyo.
yeah, nor'easter going like crazy storm.
like a hurricane
Oh, you're
outside.
going
A
there.
dog here, so we're cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like in the big picture to your question, Cal, we're what I've seen energetically is, we usually talk about seven chakras in the body, but you don't hear people talk much about the five that are above the body. So that, in total, it's a 12 chakra system that we're working with, where the 12th is really the Godhead, center of all consciousness. So it appears that, I don't know the time frame, but it appears that what we're doing is we're working toward embodying all of those into a physical form.
Oh.
So I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but that's energetically what I see. And the coolest thing happened many years ago. I was at a zoo, and there was a gorilla, and they had a glass enclosure, so you could get up. Basically, you could just both be touching the same glass, right? And he was right there near the side, and looking. I have to kind of not talk about the all the sad part. Here's an animal in captivity. He wasn't that thrilled about that. But chakra wise, what was really illuminating was I noticed he had three chakras in the body. And then the fourth chakra, which is our heart chakra, was actually at the crown, moving upward.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, really interesting. And when I thought about the chakras, like, oh, right, he doesn't have the ability to vocalize, doesn't have a fifth chakra type of experience, doesn't have a sixth chakra type of experience. It's just basically one, two, three, and then the opening is four. For us, we've got 1 through 6, and our opening is 7.
Yeah.
But you can see, our next step up. Are we going to go where it's like, 8 with 9? Or are we going to go all the way to 12? I don't know exactly, but I think that's where we're evolving to. I just don't think it's something I'm really going to see in this, in this body, in this life. Is for like the whole population is not going to pop up to there suddenly.
Not in the Zoom anyway.
Yeah, not in the Zoom call. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about, sorry, I started thinking about animals and how cool that is and how much sense that makes. That would be the chakras they have. I had a really great question that
I got a couple more.
I started thinking about a zoo.
Yeah.
About chakras at a zoo. I'll just ask it.
Okay, yeah, because mine's on.
Great question, but
Yeah,
I
so
lost in animal chakras. I was just started thinking about
don't
that.
worry, I have 100 more. So
So do I.
Yeah, so the 12 chakras. So I'm curious, like the first, second, third, they all have specific, like meanings, or I guess, people talk about like the first chakra, like grounding you and stuff like that. Do the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th all have specific purposes individually? And could you give us a once over if it's possible on like the 8th, 9th, 10th? Because I'm completely new to them.
Mhm. Yeah, they do. So all of them have meanings, but it would be kind of hard for me to put it into words for you because it's not something that's very relatable. I think, if you do a little research, you can probably find people who have tried. People have said, like eighth chakra is about this, ninth is about this, 10th. The one that makes the most sense is the 12th, the Godhead, because that's everything. But if you want to experience that for anybody on the call, what you would do is just go into your meditative state and just imagine that you're on that journey. So if you can start in the heart, if that's a comfortable place for you, you can start in the third eye if that's a comfortable place for you. And you're just going to visualize yourself taking the journey up. Like, okay, I'm going to travel through my chakras. Like I'm going to go from my heart up into the throat and just see how does that fifth chakra feel? What am I experiencing if I just let that be 90% of my awareness? Okay, this is always a fascinating journey to go through your own chakras. Okay, you can come up to here, come up to the 7th, and then just continue upward. And you'll find your own answers up there, which is what these are all about anyway. So, instead of me telling you. And then as you get up into those higher experiences, you may notice that you get a little bit foggy, like you start to kind of fall asleep or space out. That's pretty normal. You're just hitting those veils of unconscious energy that are between, kind of our current awareness and the next awareness. But with a little focus, if you just kind of hang out and just kind of keep going, like, oh, everything looks kind of foggy, but I'm just going to keep going, keep going, keep going. At some point, boom, you'll pop out of this space of clarity again. Be like, oh, maybe this is the eighth chakra. Ooh, what am I experiencing? Yeah. So I'd say go check it out for yourself. That's going to be the most
We
uh,
will go do that.
informative for you. Yeah.
Even that when coming back.
Yeah, I know. That'll be your mission tonight.
You know where I am.
You just sent someone a crazy mission. I did the second after I said take the question. I remembered. So you had talked about, and I think it was a little bit surprising for me to hear that you have trouble maybe listening, because I would assume that you're just on some kind of other radar system where you're, seeing and feeling energy and knowing everything that's happening. So it made me curious, what is your experience of how you perceive energy, and if you can turn it on and off, or if it's
Mhm.
constant?
Yeah, it's a good question. Really insightful. Yeah, it's different for everybody depending on how sensitive you are to energy. Like a good analogy that I can use is if you're driving your car and you're going through maybe through a downtown area where there's shops, there's people on the sidewalk and stuff. If you're driving your car, like, can you see those people on the sidewalk? Yes, you can. You're able to see them. But do you see them?
Mm.
Probably not,
Hmm.
right? Because you're focused on the road, you're thinking about where you're going, you're thinking about your day, you're talking to your friend. So you probably don't see those people, even though they're there and you're able to perceive them.
Hmm.
So energy is like that for me. It's not, I'm able to tune in. Like if you ask me a question, I can tune in and look at the energy, but I don't feel like I'm swimming in it all the time.
Hmm.
I'm sort of in my car in my little bubble, having my experience, my journey. And in some ways I think that's really nice because, I'm in this body and I'm having this experience. So it makes sense to be centered that way. But I am very sensitive to energies coming in. So even though my focus tends to be centered around myself, lots of stuff gets in. Right? I'm a medium, I'm an empath. So so there's, my environment will get in, other people will get in. So for those of you that are like that, that are sensitive, the most helpful question you can ask yourself with anything is just, is this me? Or is this mine, depending on the
Hmm.
situation. So if you start feeling uh, suddenly sad, or you can say, is this mine? Am I feeling sad or am I feeling sadness?
Hmm.
Right? Where that sad would be like, this is my experience. I'm having a genuine emotion. Sadness is there's energy circulating externally, and it's vibrating through my guitar strings, and I'm playing that song, but does it even have anything to do with me or not? Am I just listening to my environment? And so I kind of have, I guess, both happening. I'm listening to things that I'm unconscious that I'm listening to. I'm not aware that I'm listening to them and getting in and affecting me. And I'm not necessarily listening that well when I'm attending to somebody. and, and I think this is actually quite normal. Just it's not something most people would want to say out loud.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. But it's different. Like my wife Hisami, she's just always on. So she's just always in that universal energy field all the time because she doesn't have much uh, sort of self-created mental energy. She doesn't have like a belief system that she's cultivating, and she's not thinking about how things work. She's just a straight up in the moment, in love, experienced person.
Holy.
Yeah, that's what I love about her. It's helping me go that direction too. Yeah.
Hmm.
On that note, one thing I really love is when we share, one of our guest programs and it really hits home with our audience. And we've heard great things from the HCC about your Spirit Mind program, which you teach with your wife. And so, first of all, thank you. Second, I would just love to hear you talk a little bit about this union between you and your wife, and what is the Spirit Mind program all about?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. The Spirit Mind program is really Hisami's training. So it's something she's been teaching for, I guess, going on almost 20 years now in Japan. And when I met her, I was, like I said, I was already traveling around the world and teaching energy work and energy healing and channeling as well. And something really amazing happened when I met her. So I'd always had this sense that even though I was doing my best and I was learning a lot, and I'd gained a lot of skill at reading energy and and healing myself, healing others, and so on, I was aware that there was some piece that was missing, right? Because uh, there was just some energy that wasn't quite, I don't know how to say that. It's like some energy that hadn't quite grown up inside me yet. That I didn't even, and I didn't know how to shine light on that, how to help it grow. And even though I was, studying from a lot of people and doing a lot of personal work, and when I met Hisame, I could see, oh, she has that. Like she has this sense of peace all the time. Like that, like she's to that place. I was hoping all these energy tools would take me to this destination of inner peace. And in many ways they did, but they didn't take me all the way there. They took me most of the way. Like I could kind of see it. I could be there sometimes, but I would slip back a lot of times into my old awareness, my old habits.
Yeah.
So I had amazing moments, but I wouldn't say that those moments were dominating my everyday experience. And so when I met Hisame, I was like, oh, it seems that her life is almost all this just extraordinary awareness all the time. She's just centered in love all the time. But she doesn't study anything. She doesn't meditate. She doesn't have any particular spiritual practice or teachers. She, so I'm like, okay, what's happening here? And so, so that's why I started attending her classes. I got an interpreter. I started going to her classes and listening, and everything. So the spirit mind training is two things. It's Hisami's perspective, like what's actually happening energetically as we move our consciousness right now from kind of the old state we were in to this new state, this rising consciousness that we're talking about today. So the spirit mind journey is about this transition and kind of the steps along the way that we kind of stay in or get stuck in, and how to move from stage to stage. And the course itself is just a very clear, uh, very simple in some ways, energetic description of what's happening and how to move through it. And that's all Hisami's part. And my part is sort of as a student. So I'm the navigator. I say, oh, here's my experience of learning from Hisami as a person who's, perhaps a little more open and aware and pretty good at articulating things. What did I notice as I went through this journey and studied with Hisami? And so I'm not really the teacher so much. I'm the navigator or the guide through Hisami's teaching. And the goal of the program is to be able to look at yourself from love. And by the end of the program, to realize that, ah, I don't really need an external program to teach me how to become myself or how to be more spiritual. Daily life is my spiritual workshop. Like my daily life has everything I need to learn, to grow, to expand, to accomplish all the things my spirit wants to. I don't need to look outside for those. Like everything is there. And with an understanding of the energy and how things are transitioning, that's our goal for the students, is for people to learn how to continue to do it by themselves, like not to be dependent on somebody else. And I love that because it's something that I noticed early on and I've had teachers tell me that as a group too. They said, in the workshop, we all get to this really high vibration. We're all vibrating and feeling good and just this really fantastic elevated state over this spiritual workshop, this 2 days, 3 days. And then you go home and like, how long does it last?
Mm.
is it like Wednesday when you're back fighting with people at work, you know, or is it Thursday? You know, like well, at one point, you know, at what point does it just seem like a nice moments, you know, a nice weekend you had rather than something that's actually, you know, continuing forward.
Um,
And and so that's the transition we're going for there. And so after the training, we do live calls once a month with students, just very simple to circulate the spirit mind energy again, just to kind of help people come back up. We don't include a lot of information
Hmm.
because it's not about thinking. It's just about let's all get together, let's bring our vibration up, let's circulate some healing energy with people on the planet, and like, whew, just a little love, a little energy support. And so we do that every month on an ongoing basis.
That
So
sounds
that's
awesome.
kind of the energy description of what the course is. Yeah.
Sounds great. Anyone listening, we've linked that below.
mhm. Yes, so we really appreciated this. And I would really love, oh, I guess we really can't interview you guys together, but I would love to just talk to your wife. I feel like every time I'm
Me
like,
too.
there you go. But anyway, I'm putting that out there in a dream
Hmm.
as a request to the universe. Maybe it'll come back somehow. Because I would just love to sit with you both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somebody will probably start teaching relationship workshops at some point here in Japan. But they may not include a lot of information. It may be
Hmm.
mostly energy and love, right? But
Very
yeah,
nice.
we'll see. And we both know that it's out there. It's in our future. Just the timing isn't clear yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any final message you'd like to share to our group or anyone that might receive this message?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the final message to all of you is just thank you. You know, thank you for the work that you're doing because it's working. Like I can see, I've been flipping through the thumbnails, looking at your faces as we're going through the call here, and the work that you're doing on yourself isn't important just for you and your own well-being and your family and people close to you, but you right now you are impacting all the people around you, and you're making a different path that we can step into on the planet. Or maybe a better way to say it is you're making a path, a gentler path that we can follow to the destination that we're all going to. And that's beautiful because that's what every
The energy transmission just turned into this.
I wonder if you can still hear us. I've
Wow.
never seen that
I've
before.
never seen that in my entire life.
Yeah.
Welcome back again to say goodbye.
Yeah.
I think that was some kind of weird energy thing that happened because I've never seen that in my life.
yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Very
I
cool.
don't know. I'm not sure why, but timing seemed perfect. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was. So we appreciated you being here so much and hope that we can talk again. And we're sending so much love to everybody.
Is there any other way we can support you before you go? Anybody listening can support
No,
you.
no, it's just it's really beautiful connecting with everybody and each of you. And of course, everybody is welcome to come explore in the Spirit Mind training if you like.
Mhm.
And it seems like a really nice fit. We're both groups are sort of doing very similar work, you know,
Yeah.
toward similar ends. So it's really nice.
Thank you for all the great work you're doing. It
Yeah,
was
thank
awesome
you.
seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you.
We love you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.